beer, rum, and rock and roll. Saving rock, one conversation at a time. With Randy Legault and Beau Shiminsky.
All right, man, we're back on the Zoom chat for this one. Special edition of Beer, Rum, and Rock and Roll. We have Shane Gaalaas coming right up. This is going to be great.
Incredible drummer that a lot of people probably don't know. I'm guessing, you know, it's like, it's one of those things, but you should know this guy. He's just incredibly talented and has played with a lot of fucking amazing players. So,
fuck, is he ever, man?
Yeah.
What's the list? Malmsteen, Schenker, Glenn Hughes.
Who?
Fucking, yeah. He was in a band called The Bees in Japan. I mean, this guy's getting it done. And he's in Toque with Todd Kearns, Brent Fitz, and Corey Churko, who, you know, Brent and Todd have been on the show, and we all know who they are. And he's from Canada. He's from Innisfail, Alberta, dude.
Yeah, he's just up the road about an hour and a bit. You know, it's like
exactly
in a small little community. It was where he was raised, anyways. Yeah, I like those stories. I like hearing about those stories and promoting those stories. So yeah, he's a great interview. Yeah,
absolutely, really good guy, and hopefully we can have him back because as you're going to see, you can imagine we barely scratched the surface with what this guy's done. Before we get to that, I just have one little thing I want to talk about. We have to talk about Kiss, Beau.
I'm aware of the band, yes.
Kiss is doing a New Year's Eve online virtual concert. It's called Kiss 2020 Goodbye.
This New Year's Eve, be a part of the live virtual event of the year as Landmarks Live presents Kiss 2020 Goodbye, live from Atlantis, Dubai. Experience Kiss like never before. Over 50 cameras, 360-degree views, the most spectacular live stream concert event of 2020. Witness the largest pyrotechnic show ever as we make Kiss Story. New Year's Eve is gonna be fire. You're invited to spend New Year's Eve with the Demon, the Star Child, the Spaceman, and the Catman as they rock out 2020 and roll in 2021. All night. Kiss 2020 Goodbye. Live from Atlantis, Dubai. The one live streaming event you won't want to miss. Kiss 2020 Goodbye. Don't miss the year's biggest live streaming event. Get your tickets now at www.kiss2020goodbye.com.
I'm going to read you the Kiss press release for this fucking show. Ready?
Sure. Yeah.
They're bringing the biggest and baddest concert event, Beau, and pyrotechnic show of the year, proving once again that Kiss never does anything small. The massive stage production and free pre-show will be brought directly into your living room at 9 p.m. Filmed with more than 50 cameras and 360-degree views, this will be an experience like no other visual concert before. Tickets are at kiss2020goodbye.com. They range from $50 to $250 all the way up to $1,000. Like, I don't know exactly what you're getting for those, but I saw the sentence 14 exclusive and limited edition items. And you get a Blu-ray of the show when it's all over. So I saw that and thought, you know, for $50, if I'm sitting at home, there's a high probability I might do this. That's all I'm saying. Hey, what else is on?
Well, you could watch Dick or whoever is doing it now in New York.
Dick,
you know?
Dick isn't around anymore.
I know he's not. I know.
I can watch Ryan Seacrest.
Seacrest, that's the guy. Yeah.
I'd rather watch Gene than Ryan Seacrest, I think. But
yeah.
I just wanted to mention that because it put a smile on my face because these guys, man, they find a way. They find a way to bring the dough in and give the fans something all the time, right?
Yeah.
And from Dubai. How subtle is that? Atlantis, Dubai.
Yeah. Well, I'm not surprised, but I'm very interested to see how many people pay for that. You know, it's.
You want to chip in and come over?
And I got to figure out what I'm not even allowed to come over at New Year's. We're in lockdown.
That's
dude.
right. You'll have to sneak in. You have to sneak. Yeah. You have to park in the alley and sneak in.
Fucking now that we're broadcasting this, it's might as well just say fucking give me the ticket now because it ain't happening.
Right. Anyway, I just wanted to mention that. I got a kick out of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, without further ado, let's throw to our interview with Shane Gaalaas, shall we?
Let's do it.
Say it.
Say it.
All right, Beau and I are really stoked to have this amazing musician on the show. Please welcome Shane Gaalaas to the Beer, Rum, and Rock and Roll podcast.
Hey guys.
Woo. Hey man, how you doing?
I'm great, man. I like your studio.
Hey, thanks.
That V is sick. What is that?
That's a Gibson Black Beauty V. So they did this, custom shop did this about 5 years ago, maybe 6. And I was looking for a V, man, for a longest time, and they don't show up often. And anyways, custom shop finally released something that looked that badass, and I'm like, okay, time to dive in for another one and explain to the wife, like, why.
Yeah, right. You're really gonna buy that guitar?
Or another guitar? Don't you have 18? Like, what the fuck?
But isn't that one particularly kind of adolescent looking, a little bit like the V? I'm not sure the V really got the chicks going, but hey. I love the Vs, man.
You know what? I love playing it because, especially when I'm just noodling or writing, I play it like a classical guitar because of the way it's got to sit on my leg, right? And you just play differently, man. You just end up down the neck quite a bit differently, so it's kind of fun.
Playing the rock bottom solo from Michael Schenker.
Yeah, you would know.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. You're already like swilling them back?
Oh.
Is that a rum?
Of course.
A rum and Coke? Dude, that's funny because my dad, my father drank rum and Coke. He wasn't like the biggest drinker, but when he drank, it was rum and Coke. At an early age, I think, I remember the first time I actually got drunk was cherry whiskey. And my dad built a bar in our basement up in Innisfail. And I was I don't know how old I was, but they had a party and I was probably like 7 or 8 or something. And I remember I'd sneak into the bar and they couldn't see me because I was too short, right? It was like one of those kind of, I don't know, the typical Alberta bar that they built in the basement.
Sure.
So I'd sneak in there and I remember up on the shelf there's like the cherry whiskey stuff and it looked, it was like a nice color. It looked pink and maybe as a kid I thought that would be, something to try. Because they were all smashed, they were all hammered. It was like, yeah, I want to try this. And I remember taking the bottle off. Yeah, I smelled it. It was like cherry. It was like the cherry brandy whiskey or whatever it was. That roundy bottle. And I couldn't have drank very much, but dude, I had a few swigs of it and I was hammered. Like the hammered you get when you're 8?
Yeah.
Where you're puking in about half an hour, and my mom ended up like spending the whole night with me on the toilet, and I was, oh God, it was the worst. Because you're so hammered, you're just spinning, throwing up, and probably the next time I drank was probably rum and Coke, like a year later.
Yeah, when I was 9, I was ready to commit to something better.
We started early up there in the prairies, up central Alberta way. We weren't quite as sophisticated as you guys down in the city.
Oh yeah, sophisticated. Yeah, sure.
Well, my dad's a big he wasn't a big drinker at all. Like, I could not steal booze because the line never really came down on the bottle. When you'd mark it, to some guys did. But so I could never rip it off, but he always drank rum, so that was the first thing I tried, and I haven't looked back, man. Like, I can drink it all day, not get hungover. My body's so immune to it, right? So I'm like, who's that guy on Trailer Park Boys? Just walks around with a rum and Coke the whole time, right? Julian. Yeah. Julian, that's me all day.
Yeah, Julian rules. What do you? What's your particular brand of choice?
My father's was Lemon Heart, so that's all I have. I have a Skull bottle over here that's always got Lemon Heart in it, and that's what happens. Randy's got something for me at his house, so I always have my rum when I go over there. It's perfect.
Yeah. I got the collection of the Dan Aykroyd skulls, and they've all got, one of them's for you, for sure.
Yeah, dad was a Captain Morgan guy. So
The captain. Did he stand around with his leg up on one thing?
no, but I remember Dad he could swill him back in the day when he'd get him on a piano and he'd bring him the rum and coke. Actually, that was the way to get him to entice him to play the piano, was to bring him a rum and coke. Be like, honey. I remember my mom going up, Dale, why don't we'd be sitting around, it would be the family gathering or whatever, and Dale, why don't you go play the piano? He's pretty good, he was like, he played by ear, honky tonk style piano, Oh,
I love that,
man. And after a couple rum and cokes, man, he could throw down. But it was just getting him there, he was always timid and honey, maybe later. So we give him a couple, rum and cokes, and pretty soon he'd start out, drinking, and then pretty soon by the end of the night he'd be wailing and everybody'd be around the piano, and
pretty soon he's Jerry Lee Lewis lighting the fucking thing on fire.
Absolutely, man. That was partly where it started. I used to see him just like, playing the shit out of the piano, and it aroused something in me, from a very early age. And then I remember going to Camrose. My grandmother lived there. A lot of my in-laws live up around that area. And my grandmother had John Lennon Imagine, the album. And I remember she had it kind of a thing against the Beatles. Like, she was pretty staunch Catholic. And I remember her having a thing, but it's weird. The weird part of it is she had a thing against the Beatles, but she knew that I was into rock and roll because my parents had we had a jukebox in our basement. And they, it was all the 50s, Jerry Lee Lewis, all that whole era of rock and roll, right? But I remember going to Camrose, and she somehow got John Lennon Imagine, and then she brought me the record, and she goes, Shane, you might like this. I'm not much for the Beatles because they're smoking pot, and they're sleeping in beds, and John Lennon, he's making babies in a bed, and they're filming it in Montreal. I remember this whole thing she had, but yet she had me the audacity to give me this record. So she was actually giving me Satan, really.
Promoting Satan, yeah, totally.
It was so weird. But anyway, I took that record and I played it and listened to the shit out of it. And then it was like, at that point, everything just kind of went, chung, wow, this whole music thing. And it just took off from there. But that would have been around 72, 73. I was 5 or 6 when it really hit me. And I'd been listening to all the rock and roll and my dad playing the piano and stuff. But when I remember hearing like Crippled Inside, that song?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a heavy groove, and there's a dobro, and it's a, thick kind of and
that's pretty heady for a kid, man. Like, right?
Yeah. And it was kind of a honky tonk halftime kind of swingy feel, shuffly. You only got one, and a dog's life ain't fun.
Yeah.
Mama, take a look outside. But, it kind of had a swampy kind of rock and roll, down a dirty, greasy thing, and I like that.
You only got one, and a dog's life ain't fun. Mama, take a look outside.
And then the next thing that really kind of hit me was I went to Camrose again. This would have been 75. Kiss Alive 1. My cousin had Kiss Alive 1, and he put on 100,000 Years, which I think it was the second record, side 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
He put it in the middle of the song. He goes, you got to hear this drum solo. And he kind of got almost to the part where Paul Stanley's doing the rap,
Yeah.
Goes into the drum solo.
Do you feel right?
Yeah. No. And I was just, it was Kiss Alive 1. The pictures, Gene Simmons, Peter Criss, Ace, Paul. It was like, that changed my life. And then it was like, what the hell? I went back to Innisfail. I got Kiss Alive 1 on 8-track. I played it for my friend down the street. And immediately we started, like I set up some ice cream pails and started tapping around on them. He was Paul Stanley, or no, he was Ace Frehley. And then a couple of our other friends came over, and they were Gene and Paul. And then we would literally play like Kiss Alive 1 from the front to the back. And that's where it sort of really started for me, like the whole drum thing, you know, like I figured out the grooves and stuff through listening to that, just picked it up by ear. You know, at this point, Kiss, it was all about Kiss. You know, I was Kiss everything, posters everywhere. That would have been right before Love Gun, so Rock and Roll Over. Up until that point, I knew everything. You know, it was like we had every record, I knew every lick. And then Kiss was coming on tour, Love Gun tour. Through, I think I don't know where they would have played. It would have been maybe the Corral in Calgary.
It was the Corral for sure. Yep. Yeah,
it was pre-Dome, right? So,
yep.
And then the Northlands Coliseum. I begged my parents to get me tickets to that, and they hemmed and hawed, and you know I was pretty young. I was, 10, right? That's kind of young to be going to a rock and roll concert in the big city, especially we were from Innisfail, right. And it was like we didn't really go to the city that much, in those days, the 70s. It's like we went to Calgary. I remember the first time going to Calgary, it was like you get to about Airdrie and you start to see downtown Calgary. I was like, oh, wow. You get these chills because it's like the big city that you saw in the movies, but you never actually been there. And you got to remember, right, Innisfail in mid-70s was was like 2,000 people, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, it was a big deal to go to Red Deer for us. Like, to go to the A&W in Red Deer was like, oh, man, it's like Sunday go to meeting time,
Right. They're roller skating up to the window at that point, probably.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it's 1977, Kiss Love Gun Tour. They got tickets for me, and it was like 18th row on the floor.
Wow.
Kiss Love Gun in the Edmonton Coliseum. Dude, exactly. So we get there.
I'm so jealous, Shane, because I grew up in the Okanagan.
Okay.
Too small. Like they weren't coming there. So right. I did not get this opportunity. So
yeah.
Never got the notch, but go ahead. I want to hear about it. Sorry to interrupt.
So no, it's fun when we cross paths with other, like the two guys, with Todd. I'll sit with those guys and we just go on for hours. But anyway, so yeah, Northlands Coliseum. I remember pulling up to that place. And I remember seeing it in, hockey games maybe or something outside, pictures of it. And, I could envision what it looked like with all the seats in there, like the Coliseum style. And, there's all these people. And, I'm from a small town. I'd never been in these big crowds before. And that was my first concert ever. I mean, before anything. I didn't even go to a show in Red Deer or something, It was like nothing. Just bam, right to the Edmonton Coliseum. 10 years old. We go inside and, it's cool because, when there's always a foyer around the ring that you can walk around, but you can still see in like every exit, right? And I remember just looking in down the exit and it looked like there was like, 1 million people, or it could have been 1 million people in there, even though it was like whatever, 15,000 or something.
Yeah.
But just seeing through and it's like, oh my God, and the sound, they're pumping the tunes before the show and it's all echoey and that big sound coming out the big PA. And man, it was just like, oh man, this is so incredible. And then we go down to the floor and it's like, they had a lot of it sort of scrimmed off, but I could tell it was Kiss, I could see, oh man, there's Ace's, that's probably his guitar rig right there, I can see some cymbal stands, oh, he's going to be playing those. It was just so incredible that whole time,
What's that smell?
Well, that's coming. So we get down, we get seated, right? As soon as we sat down, it was like right next to us. The pipe came out, and I was like, "What is that?" I know it smells like it's wrong, but it smells right.
What are they sharing? Everybody's sharing.
So right, and the smoke's wafting up. I remember my mom trying to kind of shield me from it, like, "Don't look at them," because she knew, I think, what was up. So now it's like, pot and there's booze going around. Like in those days, it was like vodka bottles getting passed around and weed and everything. I was just like, oh man, this is so amazing. It didn't seem like there were kids there, but I didn't think they were down on the floor so much like where I was. It seemed like there was all these, they were probably teenagers, but they seemed like old people,
Yeah.
They kick off the show, or actually it was Cheap Trick, dude. It was Cheap Trick.
Yep. I know.
Cheap Trick opening.
Oh,
And,
I know.
They played all that, I Want You to Want Me. I remember watching
Sure.
Bonnie Carlos and the whole thing, and I want you. I think that was already on the radio, like it was a big hit when they were playing it. So I kind of knew that. And then, yeah, Kiss came on. Dude, it was like,
Oh my God.
that is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I know it. I just know it. It's in my DNA. I know now. Something changed like radically in me, and I was just like, the OS had been installed at that point. It was like, it's installed, and now it's just a matter of like, downloading the right software.
I mean, well put. I mean, you hear that so much, whether it's Kearns or Tom Morello or Dimebag. I mean, the list is fucking endless of these guys who saw Kiss and it changed their life. I mean, it changed mine fan-wise. Like, I didn't become I dabble, as you can see, but I'm not a fucking musician. But it changed my life in that it got me into music. My first concert was Van Halen, Fair Warning. So that wasn't Kiss, but it was
In Calgary?
mine. In Calgary, yeah, at the Corral, you bet.
I saw that one too.
You guys are old. You're old.
But we look fantastic.
No, thanks. Yeah, I mean, but you can imagine just the impact of, seeing that spectacle when you're 10, right? And not seeing anything before. And there was nothing that really could compare that came before, really. There was no big, huge rock stage show like that, like Kiss.
Well, you see it even now on the DVDs we all own. It still holds up. Like, that show is fucking phenomenal, that Love Gun show.
Yeah, absolutely.
You play Pearl drums till this fucking day, do you not?
I do, absolutely.
This is not a fluke, I'm guessing. This is a Peter Criss tribute, no, or what?
Initially, yeah, it would have started. And then I sought out different drums and things as I got older and all that. And I was briefly with another company for a little while, but ended up coming back to Pearl just because they just make great shit. Like all the drum companies these days make great stuff. But I established a really close relationship with Pearl in Japan when I was there for a long time.
Right.
And then when I got back to the States, sort of just, the sort of carried over to, the people that work here, and they've just been really good.
Well, if you want the best, you play Pearl and Gibson.
Yep.
Right?
Totally.
But anyway, yeah, dude, so that concert changed my life. Now, on the way back to Innisfail, the drive back after the concert, I begged my parents for a drum set. We got back, and they're like, yeah, he's just all wound up because he just saw the show. He's a kid, and he's excited. We get it. But, dude, I was fucking relentless. The next day, I remember going to my mom's like, you guys got to get me a drum set. Like, I have to you don't understand. I have to have this thing because it's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
One that shoots sparks out the side.
I just wanted, a real drum set to play,
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, I know you think you're going to play it for the rest of your life, but you probably won't. You'll probably use it for a couple of weeks, and then it's going to end up in the closet with all your other junk that you don't play with. I remember begging her. I was literally on my knees, and she was on the couch laying there reading a book. And I went up to her, and I was literally begging her to get me a drum set. Like, on my knees, just, Mom, please, you don't understand. Like, I have to have this drum set. So, lo and behold, my birthday rolled around that August, and I went down in the basement, and there was a Maxwin 5-piece drum set up in the corner with one cymbal and a hi-hat. Those cheap-ass cymbals, I don't know if you guys know what those are, but probably a 12-inch cymbal that was really thin and cheap on a really thin and cheap stand.
Yeah.
I put on Deuce from Kiss the Live One. I went up. It's the fill starts, and the first hit, I hit the cymbal so hard I knocked it over.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And then I had to stop and then go get the cymbal and pick it up again. And I'm going, wow, I'm gonna have to tone her down a little bit because I'll never forget that though. And they were watching me and laughing, and they couldn't believe it. They were like blown away. Okay, I guess he's kind of into this thing, so we'll let him do his thing and see what happens.
He means it, yeah.
That was it.
Did you start taking lessons and shit, or are you self-taught, or how did that all go down?
I just learned by ear, you know.
Right on.
Part of it was my dad showing me, you know, again, the honky-tonk piano thing. And typically in that music, there's a 2 and 4 in the hi-hat, you know. With a ride. And my dad, well, I'd put the drum set next to his piano, and he kind of tried to show me, you know, yeah, I think you play that thing with your foot on the 2 and 4, you know. But then my mom, prior to this, actually, my mom kind of gave me this, I don't know where she even got it from, but she was pretty musically inclined. She was a really good singer, and she just had it in her. And I remember we were listening, I think it was like a Jerry Lee Lewis song, Great Balls of Fire or something. And she pointed out to me like how the beat, you know, how the voices of the drum kit, you know, where they were in the music. Like if you hear the bass drum, it's playing on the 1, you know, boo check, boo check, boo check, boo check. And then the hi-hat, she said, you hear that thing that's like boom, boom. That was kind of the only real lessons that I had from that and my dad. The rest of it was just what I heard from Kiss Alive 1 and all the other Kiss records. And then, you know, later it was, you know, of course we got into Van Halen's and Led Zeppelin's and all that. But
there's something cooler about that. To learn like that is just cooler than taking lessons somehow. I don't know. It just is.
Well, I think from a young age, you know, I've seen kind of both ways. Like I did some, you know, I spent a lot of time in Japan, and the kids there, they don't typically get to jam in their basement, you know, with a live drum set. They kind of go, if they're interested in music, they kind of do it the formal way where they get a practice pad and a metronome, and they kind of learn that way off a page. They learn how to read right away. And, you know, they get to be really good readers and stuff. I mean, now it's changed. It's all changed, but I think the best case scenario is to learn by ear. Absolutely. And then if you want to, you know, dabble in some other styles of music, then it's good to actually learn how to read. And, you know, as a drummer, I think it's important if you're going to be a kind of a studio guy or get called for sessions, you're going to be confronted with charts. It's just the nature of the business. So you kind of have to learn how to read. I'm not a great reader, but I did go to college later and learn how to read music. You know, I was like 16, I think, before I learned what a paradiddle was. It was kind of the basic rudiment you learn.
Yeah.
It would be like the equivalent of learning, you know, your major scales or whatever on guitar, right?
Right.
But I had already been playing for years and could play pretty much anything, you know, Rush and all that stuff. But I didn't even know what a paradiddle was or how to read or anything. And then I learned that stuff later. But yeah, I think it's good to just set up a drum set or whatever it is and get with your friends and make music and listen to each other and play off each other and write songs together and learn songs. You know, like my first band that I had growing up, which started pretty soon thereafter I got the drum set. We had like, I think 100 songs or something, cover songs, everything from Neil Young to, you know, all the Beatles and all kinds of music. I think that at some point we counted up, probably couldn't play front to back all the songs, but, you know, I think we had a list of 100 songs that we could kind of play. And then, you know, we had our own songs. I think we had like 10 originals when we were just little kids, you know. But it was all just trial and error, you know, tossing around ideas, jamming for hours in the basement, you know. We're fortunate that our parents were so good to us, and they just let us sort of, you know, play. Because
I mean, and especially being a drummer, because as a parent, that would be the worst fucking instrument. Let's face it.
Alive, and it was an open thing. There wasn't any muting on it or anything, and I wasn't playing jazz. You know, I'd
Yeah.
smash the shit out of those drums as hard as I could all the time.
There were no fucking there were no Simmons pads back then that you could turn down or whatever.
Well, not till probably the early 80s did the Simmons pads, but I wasn't interested in any Simmons pads.
No.
At that age.
No way.
Yeah. It's funny because this is how crazy we were as kids. We would want the neighborhood to know we were rockers, you know? So we would open the window up in our basement and jam at full blast, turn the amps around, and just blast. We get home around 4 o'clock, and I think 10 to 4 is usually when I'd roll up to my house. And by 4 o'clock, it was like we were practice every day for at least 3 or 4 hours. And we would open the windows until our parents would come home or the neighbors would come by, and because that happened, and we were so freaking loud. You know, we had loud amps. We had literally had PA system in my basement, a full PA system, and the drums were mic'd up, going through a PA in the basement. It was ridiculous. Light show.
Your parents are awesome, dude.
Well, they didn't know. They were at work, you know. So by the time they came home, we would close the window. But yeah,
I see.
We had the neighbors came over and put a stop to that pretty quick.
Right. So let's bounce ahead a bit, man. Like, so you said I know you were in a cover band doing AC/DC tunes. Is that how you kind of cut your teeth? Like you're cruising across Canada doing that, or what?
Back up a little bit. So
sure.
I graduate high school. I've been playing all through my high school years with a band, my friends. And I graduated high school, and my plans were to move to Calgary. That was a big move, you know, for me at that point. But I didn't have that much dough. So I wanted to save up a little bit more dough and then move to Calgary. So actually my father helped me get a job on a pipeline. He knew some foreman on a pipeline crew. So yeah, I took a job pipelining, and I did that for about 7 months, right through the dead of winter, like when I graduated school. And that summer, I think I got the job, 85, and then I worked through till probably, I don't know, May or something, 86. And that was, I mean, I can't imagine a harder job in the universe than that.
Dude, again, parallel lives. My dad is a pipeline welder.
Oh,
so
wow.
I helped him off and on for a couple of years.
Okay.
And you learn what work is really like. I'm like, okay, I know I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
It's -40 out all day long, you know.
Dude, I was a welder's helper a lot on that gig because that was one of the gigs.
There you go.
I remember being in like a trench, and we were putting in those risers, you know, and you had to put in pour the foundation for the riser, and it's the middle of winter, but it's still froze down there, you know.
Dude,
it was like concrete. And I remember having this jackhammer and being in that trench with a full skidoo suit. It was like 30 below. I'm in this trench on my back. I got this jackhammer thing that's probably weighs almost as much as I do, spitting oil out. It's 30 below. It's loud as hell, and it's like, I just remember going, I gotta get the fuck out of here. How much money do I have at the end of this week? Can I go to Calgary?
Yeah.
So, I didn't know how I was gonna live. I just knew I had to have a drum set. So I had to have enough money to buy the drum set. Once that was taken care of, then I wouldn't worry about how to live. I met some guys from Innisfail, and I auditioned for their band. They came up to Innisfail to audition me, and ended up getting in their band. So that was kind of like the first, you know, sort of professional band. Meanwhile, the guys that I thought we were going to be rock stars together, I had envisioned my plan for my high school band to become rock stars and conquer the world. Those guys decided to go to college. So it was like, it crushed me, but they were smart. They were the smart ones, actually. But anyway, yeah, so I went to Calgary, and I ended up getting in. There was an old warehouse, like a woodworking warehouse that I lived in. That was our rehearsal studio. So that was my first sort of band. And then we tried to get gigs, but we were just way too heavy and obscure. And we just wanted to play like Yngwie and Dio and Maiden and Priest and all this stuff. And meanwhile, it was the top 40 scene going on then, 1987. But then I did that for a couple of years, trying to make a go of that band, and I was like, this is just not going to work. We weren't going anywhere. And that's at that point I was like, okay, I know that I'm in this for the long haul. I better go learn how to read. I went to Grant MacEwan for a year in college.
Okay.
So then I ended up going to Edmonton. I was in Edmonton for a year. Did the college thing for a year, and then I started playing around in some Edmonton bands. You ever remember that band Winterkill? They were Edmonton-based kind of band, but it was like a Priest, Maiden band. Really good, a lot of really good players. Those guys were like 15 years older than I was or something, but I auditioned for them to sub for the drummer, and then through that kind of put me into some other connections, and then I auditioned for a club band called Barracuda, and that was kind of the first sort of real money-making touring band. So I did the 1 year in college, and then I was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to go back, because I got a chance to go out and play with this band and make money playing rock and roll. So then from there it was Hell's Bells. And then Hell's Bells put me on the road for about 3 years, and that's when I played, that was like the Live Wire, that whole scene, and that's when I would have met, Fitz and Todd and all those guys.
I probably saw you.
Oh yeah, I mean, we were nonstop, and it was like the same run all the time. It was Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, maybe Red Deer, and then out to Winnipeg, Thunder Bay, and then we come back and just keep doing that.
I heard at one point Hell's Bells opened for a little band from Seattle. Maybe you can tell me that story.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was Victoria. It was just, one of those typical, you're playing a week in a club, be like midweek, there would be like some headlining band that was going to come in, and you were going to have to strike or just open up and then strike the gear and let them play the night. And then the next day you'd set up and resume the rest of the week. It was usually like a midweek thing, they would come in and, but it was going to be this band Nirvana from Seattle.
Who the fuck are they?
Exactly. I had no idea who they were. And then that day when we went down, we had to go down early for sound check to get ready for them somehow, because I think we had to move some gear around so that they could set up, and then we had to move the gear back so we could play our set and then tear down again. It was one of those things. I only met Kurt. I didn't meet Dave then. I don't know where he was, but I remember the van pulling up, and we were setting up our gear, and the back door to the club was open, and they had a white van with a U-Haul trailer, some kind of trailer. A couple of their guys got out and started unloading the gear. I didn't see the guys in the band, though, at that point. I just remember them setting up the drum set. I remember looking at this beat up old kit going, wow, look at this thing. And we're opening for them. Look at the sticks. They're like gaff taped together and stuff. I'm like, what the hell? Why are we opening for these guys? Janky old gear and like a Fender Jaguar or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah, the Jaguar. Yeah.
Meanwhile, we had the Kramers and all that.
Sure.
So we finished getting ready or whatever it was, or moving the gear around for those guys to set up, and then I was going to go upstairs, and I went out to find the elevator to get up to my room, and I was just getting up to the elevator as it was closing. It was Kurt Cobain was in there. I go, oh, this must be one of the band guys. I hadn't seen him yet because all I saw was their crew. I think they had a couple guys in their crew setting up the gear. So it was one of those things where I kind of, run into the elevator. Oh, sorry, man. Thanks. Expecting there to be some sort of communication, something.
Nothing.
And I had the hair and the whatever else. And he was standing looking at, like, he's here, right? And here's the front of the elevator. Here's the numbers on the elevator. And he was just looking at the elevators like that. And I remember coming in, I was like, so, yeah, trying to strike up a little conversation. So you guys are playing tonight? Yeah, it's cool. You guys must be the band down. Yeah. And I could just tell right away. It was like, I'm not into talking to you, dude, at all. And
man.
He just stared at the numbers, and I was like, okay, so
wow. Like, did you have the full 80s lid, like the full fucking mane, or what?
Like permed hair down to here.
Awesome.
You know?
Awesome.
But I had the lumberjack. I wasn't like, I didn't go
Right.
full glam like the other guys in the
Right.
band. I was still Maiden, you know. I was still into Maiden and Priest and Sabbath, right?
Sure.
I couldn't do the eyeliner, you know. I couldn't go that far. But
Right.
to him, I probably looked like that or whatever. So then
That's funny.
we go play our set that night, and I went down, I think, a little bit earlier, and just to check out what the crowd was. Totally packed, right? Except it was packed full of people that I'd never seen before. Like the demographic of the people that were in the bar were completely different from the stuff that we're used to, right? It was grunge, you know, it was like punk kids and grunge kids, and it wasn't the glam kind of rocker scene that we'd been accustomed to every night. And I'm like, fuck, I think I'm just gonna maybe tone her down tonight, wear a cat, you know, put the baseball cap on backwards or something, hair in the ponytail. So I met with the guys, I met with Jeff before, and I said, you know, dude, you wouldn't believe like who's showing up for this gig. It's not like anything, it's like punk kids or something. It's weird. They're all wearing like lumberjack jackets, and it's just a weird thing, man. Maybe you guys should like tone down the eyeliner and the freaking leopard skin cape tonight. I remember him looking
Maybe
at
you
me
should.
going,
Maybe you should tease down. Yeah.
down, exactly. And he goes, we do what we do, man. We're gonna fucking do what we do. In fact, we're gonna do our originals.
Oh, you
like-
went hard.
I was like, you know, let's go out and just play some AC/DC. That's, you know, you can't go wrong. Because we kicked ass everywhere with the AC/DC. Sometimes
Sure.
we try to play our originals, it was like, yeah, I'm not sure. We come out and play AC/DC, killed them. It was a great band. The singer, Jeff, was amazing. He killed it. But not that night. We didn't kill it. We didn't kill it at all. Because we got spit off the stage. Booed and spit and fuck you'd off the stage like I'd never been before in my life. I've been booed off the stage. Like, I've been booed, not necessarily hard off the stage, like get the fuck off, where everybody wants you to get off the stage. But that night, soon as we went on stage, I could hear people like giving us verbals from the crowd. I was like, okay, I can tell this is gonna be good. And we're gonna go right into our fucking glammiest original song that they're not gonna give a flying fuck about. So,
Oh,
So
that
we
is
go
so
kick in,
harsh,
it's like-
man.
he's like, oh yeah, whatever it was, song. And there was just like, dude, like all these kids just like, and pretty soon it was like, the fingers started to go up, and then spit started to come on stage. I'd never seen that. I'd never been spit on before. Dude, it was like, we finished the first song, they started spit on us, and Jeff lost his fucking temper. And he's like, the fuck you guys think you are, blah, 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 blah. Fuck you guys, fuck you motherfucker, and all this stuff. And dude, it just got so gnarly. Like, some people, like the manager or something came, you guys gotta stop. And we had to get the fuck out of there. And we finished the set and got our stuff. Actually, no, I didn't even tear down. It was so gnarly. Our crew had to tear our stuff down, my drums down. It was just like, they hated us.
Did you see Nirvana then?
So then, interestingly enough, I was like, I gotta see what the hell this is all about, right? So I go up to my room, I take all my shit off, you know, grab a cap, and I had a lumberjack jacket too. Hell, then I put that on, cap, go downstairs, and just kind of cruise in like, you know, nobody knew where I was, and I was like, Nirvana was playing at that point, and dude, they were killing it. It was like all the stuff I loved, you know, it was like melodic, Beatlesy like choruses and heavy grooves, and Grohl was slamming the shit. You know, I mean, it was amazing. 3-piece, raw, and it was like, oh wow, this is like something I haven't heard before, and it changed everything. It really did. It just changed everything at that point. That was even before Nevermind even came out. I remember it was a couple months, because then after that, shortly thereafter that, I left Hell's Bells for Paul Dean, and I moved to Vancouver. And then Nevermind came out then, and just everything started shutting down, and the whole
Nobody wants Paul Dean after Nirvana. Yeah.
Yeah, it was tough for us to go tour because there was
Yeah.
only a few places we could play at that point. Playing originals, new songs, it wasn't Loverboy. We did play some Loverboy stuff in the set, but it was a lot of his original things.
What took you to LA, man? You talk about moving to Calgary. Moving to LA, this is a whole other deal,
Yeah.
man.
I remember I had this sort of epiphany when I was probably 15 or 14 or something. And it was like the first Night Ranger record. Sitting in my room, looking at the back of the record cover, and there was this picture of them, those guys. And I was listening to that first Night Ranger record. Even though I was a metalhead, I was into a lot of stuff in those days. And that record was really special to me for a whole host of reasons. But I remember looking at the back of the cover and these like oak trees behind them. Just felt like California, you know? And then I was always into skateboarding. So I always had like the skateboard mags and, they were always, in the middle of winter when we couldn't skateboard, they were always skating down here, pipes and the backyard pools and stuff. And surfing, I just envisioned myself like, being at the beach surfing and skateboarding and that whole thing. And then I remember looking at that cover and going, man, I would really love to actually move down there. Up until that point, I didn't really see how it would be possible. You're not old enough, mature enough to understand that you could just do that, right? After the Grant McEwen thing in Edmonton, the college that I went to, a friend of mine came down to MI.
Right.
Ray Garway, who was a fantastic drummer. He graduated Grant McEwen, and then he went straight to LA. And I was like, wow, that's cool. He actually did that. He could do that. He just fucking did it. He just went to LA and played drums and went into a school. And I was like, man, I think that's what I'm going to do. When I was in Vancouver and the whole Paul Dean thing sort of was falling apart and, we couldn't afford to keep the thing going, keep us paid and retainers and all that. And then I was back to sort of playing cover bands again. I was like, well, am I going to do this forever? Or am I going to, am I going to go to MI? And because I was still into, I've always been, studious and wanting to learn and practice different styles. And I was like, man, I put the whole thing together. I could go study and just play drums and then be in LA and then just stay there, maybe play drums in a big band or something. But I know I got to get the hell out of here because I love Vancouver, but it just, I couldn't see myself playing these, weekend gigs anymore. It got old, right? So I figured out a way. I got a couple student loans. My father's girlfriend at the time, her aunt lived in Long Beach. So I could we rigged it up so I could go and I lived at her house and I looked after her house, and then I sort of managed this apartment that they owned, her family owned, just kind of looking after, doing maintenance and stuff. So I was able to stay there for like $150 a month. Because in those days, I didn't have a lot of money. I made enough money to sort of just get by, as a musician. The tuition was $7,000, which doesn't sound like a lot of money now, but in those days, that was a hell of a lot of money just for tuition. And then to have to stay, I figured I'd need about 15 grand for a year. Can you imagine that? $15,000 for a year. So I got a couple student loans. I figured I would be able to make it work with that kind of money. And then I moved down here and lived there. And then, enrolled in MI. And then that's how that sort of all transpired.
And that school was no fucking joke. Like a lot of shredders and fucking incredible musicians came out of that place. Like I remember looking at magazines and there was ads in there. Oh, Paul Gilbert went there. Like it was the real fucking deal. It's not like you were wasting your time doing that.
Yeah, especially in those days, it was the live scene was vibrant and there was a lot of live gigs and a lot of studio gigs and there was TV and radio and there's so many different live sort of outlets where live musicians could, work, right? The problem was when I did that, I came down here and I started auditioning for all these things because through the school, they had a network of, they were just in tune with the auditions that were happening in LA. The problem was, though, being Canadian, was the visa, was being able to work, legally, because any of those gigs,
Right.
they want a social security number. So I was going to a lot of auditions and I got a lot of gigs, but I lost a lot of gigs because I didn't have a social security number. A lot of the better gigs,
Right.
like big money gigs, and I belong to the union and stuff too. But what happens when you can't get the A gig? You're playing, country gigs or blues gigs on the wrong side of town that you have to drive 2 hours to get and play for 4 hours and set up and then make $60. It was gnarly. Like the money was brutal. But slowly but surely, I was able to, you get in a lot of these bands and you get a lot of gigs, and I was doing wedding gigs and country gigs and like every kind of gig you could ever imagine. Felt like being demoted from, because even Hell's Bells,
Right.
our scene was pretty thriving. We had a full big production and PA, and we played really tight band, and we'd work like literally 51. I think that first year with Hell's Bells, we worked 51 weeks in a year. Which is a lot. And you're playing 60 nights a week, 3 sets a night, 3 or 4 sets a night, and we made good money. For a band, we made pretty good money for playing music, right? So when it came down here and I'm playing in the corner of this like janky frickin' blues bar with 3 people in the place, that aren't paying any attention, I'm going, what the hell? I'm in LA and this is what I'm going to be doing?
But then in walks Dean Castronovo. This is the fascinating fucking story to me, because what a solid thing he did for you. Why don't you talk about that?
Exactly. Okay. I had graduated from MI and I was playing a lot of these gigs around, and this thing came up where it was like the Drum Off, a Guitar Center, which is a music store down here, big, huge music store franchise. You like Long and McQuaid.
They're going fucking bankrupt, man.
Are they? I haven't heard that.
They filed for bankruptcy, man. What a
Holy
drag.
crap.
Yeah.
That is, I hadn't heard that. But anyway, in those days they were thriving. So it was like the, Hollywood Guitar Center Drum Off. I entered in. I went in that, and I think I went to the next round, and then the next round, Dean Castronova was one of the judges. So I did my thing, finished up, and I went up to Dean. I was a big fan of Dean. In Canada, I was into all, the Mike Varney Shrapnel label, music, Cacophony,
Sure.
Paul Gilbert's, and that shred, progressive.
Jason Becker and
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Racer X, blah blah blah. So I went up to Dean. I'm like, "Whoa, dude! I'm a huge fan, man. I'm from Canada, and I've been following you for years, and I really love your playing." And he goes, "Man, I love your playing, man. You give me your number, and I'm gonna refer you to some gigs, because I get so many gigs now, I can't do them all." I'm like, pfft. I'd been in LA long enough to know like a BS story and the flakiness of like LA. I was like, okay, here's my number. I literally wrote my number, which I didn't have a phone. Like my aunt's phone, she had a rotary phone.
Nice.
Yeah, so I gave him a number. And it was like, dude, 2 days later, 3 days later, I think,
Really?
I started getting calls to go audition for bands like Testament and whatever other. There was all these bands.
Really?
Yeah. And then literally it was like maybe a month after or something, I got a call and I picked up the phone. It was like "Brrring," like the old your parents had.
Old rotary.
Right?
Yeah.
The rotary phone. Picked it up and it's Yngwie on the phone. He goes, "Hey, Shane Gaalaas there." I'm like, yeah, this is Shane. Hi, who's this? He goes, "It's Yngwie Malmsteen."
No
like,
way.
Really? Yngwie Malmsteen. And I'm like, whoa. He goes, "Yeah, Dean Castronova said you're the shit." And he has kind of a little bit of a British accent, but he's Swedish.
It's odd, yes. I thought he would have people to call you. No.
Right. Yeah, I didn't know how that whole game worked. But anyway, so it's Yngwie calls me, says, "Yeah,
Wow.
can you be on a plane next week? I want you to come down to Miami and audition for my band." I was like, "Fuck yeah!"
What?
My visa was just about to expire, and I was literally going back to Canada because when your visa expires, you got to get the fuck out, or you get deported, or if they do find you and your status is expired, they kick your ass out. You can never come back, or you can't come back for 15 years or something. Anyway, so yeah, that's how I got the Yngwie gig, and I went down to Miami, and got that gig.
You were you into him? Like, yeah, I know everybody knows who he is, but were you?
Yeah.
So you knew his catalog? Like,
I did know a lot of the early stuff. So I got out of Yngwie probably, I don't know, late teens or something. Or I think when I went to Grant McEwen, I started to get into, jazz and a lot of other styles. And my adolescent bands sort of went by the wayside, especially those, the Yngwies and stuff like that. But I knew all that stuff, and it was definitely part of my DNA, right? Like the Rising Force, when I was 15. I mean, that was the stuff that I was listening to.
Now, you got to record an album with the guy, Magnum Opus.
Yep.
And you got Chris Tangarides producing, who produced Priest and Thin Lizzy and fucking Gary Moore. Like, this is the real fucking deal, man.
Yeah.
And you're on a real tour bus, I'm guessing. Like, this is up a notch. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was like the first sort of real, okay, this is the big time, big boys we're touring. I'm looking at the schedule. It's like, wow, I'm going to Germany next week, And then we're going to stay in Europe for 6 weeks and play in, fucking Poland. And we're going all over Scandinavia and Paris, Greece, Athens. What? It's crazy looking at, I was used to seeing like Red Deer, Lethbridge, Medicine Hat on the schedule, It comes with its own challenges. I mean, that was the first time I was in a band where it was like, oh, there's a rock star, you have to learn how that all works, and that whole navigating that, the attitudes. And it was always like, we were always kind of bros, like in the band, in my Canadian bands and things that I toured with, we were all, I don't know, sort of cut from the same cloth, and you always have your squabbles and stuff, but we were kind of bros to some level. And then you get in bands, sometimes there's real fighting that goes on, and a lot of politics and money and greed, and you're talking about songwriting royalties that are in the equation now, and all these things sort of get introduced into the equation that you've never seen before, up until that point.
How was it in the studio, Shane? Like, did you get to create your own drum parts, and like, did you have free reign there, or is Chris telling you exactly what to do, or how did that go down?
Well, here's what happened with that. So I went to Miami. I auditioned for Yngwie. 3 days later, we're on a tour bus. We're on tour. I had the gig. It was like, now I'm on tour for a year, right? And I think after, I don't know, 4 months of touring or something, we were scheduled to do Magnum Opus. And I think there was probably a couple weeks of sort of pre-production where we lived in Miami, and then we were rehearsing to go in the studio with Chris Criteria in Miami and record the record. It was like a week to do the bass and drums. In those days, that's kind of what you did. We're getting now a schedule. We look ahead. We know kind of what the songs are going to be. We have demos of them. We've been it was really hard to rehearse with Yngwie because he just wanted to solo all the time. But Barry and myself started working out some parts for all these songs, and we had some pretty slick parts, that we wanted to kind of just make it a little more written out, and just more orchestrated than just like, oh, another one of these, right? So we worked out a lot of cool grooves and parts and things and sections and dynamics and stuff that we had written. And then we get into the studio with Chris, and Yngwie would write with some kind of a drum machine. He would literally put on a beat that was like doom dega 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 dega. Right, and record. That would be sort of the demo. So when you'd stray from that at all, it would freak him out because he'd have demoitis, we call it, married to the demo. And he would want you to sort of play that, even though he wanted it. He said he wanted something different, but it was ultimately that. So we go in. Long story short, we go in to play this song that we thought, like Barry and I were in there. Thought we got this really cool groove together. We were playing along together live, and we were locked and tight, and we've got all these cool parts. And we played through the song, and Yngwie didn't like it. He was like, yeah, I just want to hear like can you just do Toque, 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 Toque? So we went back in the live room, and I sat down on the kit, and they counted in. We played through the song, and I just literally just kind of, okay, we just wing it, just play it, you know, kind of how a lot of his other songs are arranged, you know. And those were the tracks, those were the takes that ended up on that record, like 1 or 2 takes.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, Shane, but would that be creatively unsatisfying? Is that kind of what we're leading to here, or what?
To a certain degree, yeah, especially because I think what we had was something, because we had grown up with his music, and I think we had a good idea of how we could contribute something that wouldn't totally be like, you know, out in left field, but something that would maybe change it, just give it a little new flavor, you know, from, you know, previous records. And I think it's funny because I get a lot of people that still love that record, and now looking back, and you know, there's something to be said, I guess, for sticking to something that's already been tried and true. There's some things I think that probably ended up on there that were maybe a little musically interesting or different than what he had done prior to that. But I get a lot of people coming, oh man, I love Magnum Opus, it's such a great record, and blah, blah, blah. So it's pretty cool.
Can't explain the way I feel. I made it so low. For someone like
I'm grateful that it all happened, you know. And
I bet.
And then that record went platinum in Japan right away, right off the bat, because Yngwie was huge in Japan.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know, to the 10 years after, right? We don't see that these days in Japan like we did 20 years ago, but it's changed now. But in those days, Yngwie was a big deal. I remember flying to Japan on that after that record released, and it was platinum in Japan, and we landed it. Dude, it was like Beatlemania. It's like we got off the plane, and there was literally hundreds of people all over in the airport trying to get at us. And so now I got a taste of real touring in, you know, clubs and maybe some small theaters in the States. Now I go to Japan, we're playing big places, you know, like 3, 5, 10,000 seat venues, or maybe not 10,000, I should say 8. I think probably Budokan was like a 8,000 seater, but yeah. So in answer to your question, it was a whole new thing that I'd never experienced before. I was touring the world, seeing all the big cities on a tour bus, you know, magazines and all the drum companies and stuff, and everybody's all of a sudden interested in you. You know, you're on a record, and they will ask you questions about, you know, what you played on the record. I was like, wow, this is cool. It was a whole new thing, you know. And then it was also the other side of it where there was dynamics in the band, and there was certain, you know, people that didn't get along, and you had to navigate how to not step on someone's toes or piss people off or cater to certain people. So it was a whole learning experience, and I think I don't know, I spent 2.5 years doing that thing with Yngwie. But yeah, so it was fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a huge character builder, man. That sounds, yeah, good and bad. It sounds positive to me, you know?
Yeah, it really was. And I never had a problem. Like, people always say, oh man, Yngwie is a dick and all this stuff. And I never had a problem with Yngwie. I had a lot of fun times with Yngwie. I remember playing tennis in his backyard, you know. I mean, one-on-one, Yngwie was great, you know. And it was, I think in those days too, maybe he was hitting the bottle pretty hard. So that's never a good mix, you know.
Did you get to drive one of his Ferraris?
I didn't. Yeah, it was fun. It was a great time, that episode of my life, now looking back.
Hey man, that's a good place to pause. We got to have you back, because I never got a quarter through what I wanted to talk to you about.
Really?
Oh yeah, well you know your resume. There's lots more to talk about, so we have to have you back. But what I want to close on, you got nominated for a fucking Grammy, dude.
Yeah.
So it was for the Bill and Ted Face the Music soundtrack, which is nominated for Best Compilation Soundtrack for Visual Media. I'll let you tell that what happened there and how that gig came around.
So I don't know if you guys know Josh Gooch. I know you know Corey Churko.
Yeah.
They had been, you know, doing different things, and Josh Gooch was sort of friends and a collaborator with a musical sort of director, producer. He's sort of a liaison to, the musical director who puts all the music together for like a soundtrack or a movie, some stuff like that. And then Josh knew him, and the executive producer, we'll call him for now, talked to Josh about like, could you put something together to submit for this movie? And so Josh played him a song from the Coincidental Minors band that we have. Like, I don't know if you guys know of that or are hip to it.
I've heard of it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So it was just like a fun band that we sort of had. Executive producer guy dug what we did. Then they contacted Josh, or he contacted Josh and Corey. They got some tracks, some sort of rough arrangement of a song that was going to end up in this movie, and they wanted to see what we could do with it. So that's when I got the call from Corey and Josh to come and play and do some tracks for the song that they were going to basically kind of arrange and write some parts for. That was kind of roughly scripted out, the song, partially written and sort of partially arranged. And then we just sort of put it all together. They did, they put it all together, but we tracked the drums over here, and Corey mixed it, arranged it, and they put on a bunch of guitar takes and everything. And then months and months went by. And I mean, I remember I didn't even think it was even going to make it into the movie, and then all of a sudden it was like, it's going to be on the soundtrack in the movie and everything, our version of it, right? So lo and behold, I found it yesterday, it got nominated for a Grammy.
Dude, that has got to be so fucking cool, no?
Yeah, very cool, man.
It is. It's kind of, it's surreal. I mean, it's a small part of, in the grand scheme of things, but I'm really stoked for those guys because they put, Corey did a lot of work, and, there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of politics, and there's a lot of legwork in that whole game, going back and forth with tracks and mixing stems and changing things and rearranging. And basically my part was pretty easy. They brought over a video. I kind of watched the screen as what was going to happen. And then we sort of had to sort of mime what was happening on the screen, and then it sort of kicked into a song that was, arranged. But we tracked it over here. But it's kind of funny how it went from that to, finally getting placed in the movie, and then gets nominated for a Grammy. So
that's awesome.
We'll see what happens.
So when you say you tracked it, so obviously you have a full-on home studio. That's where you're sitting right now.
Yeah. So it was a garage. The live room was a garage, and I converted it, turned it into like a live drum room. And then a few years after that was finished, I did an addition on my house, and then I blew out the back end of my house and built like a control room, which you see here. This is the control room. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen any posting, social media stuff for me, but where
Absolutely.
my drums are. But that's in the live room where I record everything.
You're fucking killing it on those Instagram loops. I love watching you drum to those loops, man. It's fucking unreal.
Thanks, man.
Oh,
Thank you.
Your double kick work is crazy, man. Crazy.
Oh, thanks, guys. And since this COVID thing went down, I mean, now I've just been so busy tracking. I spend so many hours in this place. I don't have as much time. If I have some social media time, it's Instagram, and I'll post my thing. I did that, from my practice session, just to kind of try and stay, relevant in those circles, because that's kind of our game these days. We got to pay attention to that.
I know you got to blast off, but I want to mention
Yeah.
Toque and how much fun that is, man. Like, I got to talk about just briefly that episode you guys did with the bass player from Kick-Axe. I know you just trust me, go watch it. It was the funniest fucking thing. I texted Todd, I go, I can't breathe right now. There was a 30-second delay from what he said to what you guys heard, and it was bananas, man. It was just hilarious.
Well, if you remember, it was like there was a couple times where it was literally like a couple minutes later.
Oh, dude.
He would come back on. His blurb would come back on, but yeah, that thing was a lot of fun. Todd, as you know, I mean, he could be a freaking stand-up comedian, right? And he's so great at navigating like that whole thing, because sometimes we'll, what do we ask next, right?
Well, he's got a pop culture Rolodex in his fucking head, man. He knows all that shit.
He's great at just sort of like knows how to like things can go awkward, as I'm sure you guys know. Things can get really awkward all of a sudden. It's like, how do we get out of this, you know? But with Todd, it's like he's gonna always pull it out. He's always pulls it off, and he's so slick and so funny and so talented.
The past couple were really good, like the Toshi one. I mean, I know he's on Kimmel and stuff, but I didn't know much about him. That was really interesting. And Rhonda Smith, I didn't know she was Canadian. That was awesome too, right? And you played with her.
I mean, I knew of Rhonda Smith for a long time, but I didn't know she was Canadian until I was going to play with her, and then I started, Googling her and checking her out. I was like, no way, she's from Montreal, crazy.
Okay, man, thanks again for doing our little show, man. You know, we do it for fun, but we're trying to get our audience larger, and guys like you help us do that. So it's just an awesome time talking to you. We got to have you back, though, man. Like, we didn't get to talk about this guy.
Yeah, right. Well, I did five records for Michael.
I know you did. I mean, there's stuff to talk about, man.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll get up there, too, and play a gig sometime before we're 60.
Yeah, exactly.
How is it man? With the COVID?
They recently cracked down a little more. They're cracking down in LA, too, I hear. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You can't even eat outside.
No, we're going back into full lockdown. Yeah, they opened up the outside eating for, I don't know, a couple months now or 3 months maybe. They just want to tighten it all up before Christmas, so.
Yeah, it's bananas, dude. And, man, live music is where we like to watch it and you like to play it, and it's fucking hurting. I don't have to tell you that.
So are there any gigs going on in Calgary? Just small?
You know what? Like I know talking to Reed, he did one of those, watch from the hotel balcony down to the pool area where the stage is. He did one of those. There's that kind of shit going on, but other than that, not so much. No.
Right.
How about in LA? Is it anything? Like, no.
No. The only gig I've done in the last, since this whole lockdown was a streaming gig at the Baked Potato, but there was nobody there.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing. There's nothing going on.
Bands are doing that pay-per-view shit, but I mean, it's okay. But it's, as you know, it's being there is, you can't be being there.
It's hard right now. I mean, everything is just spread so thin. I mean, it's hard to get an audience to watch you, man. It's a real challenge right now because there is so much streaming now that if you're going to do a streaming gig, it's like, boy, it's hard to get people to even pay a couple $6 to come watch a show. It's hard to get them to do that.
Well, to bring it full circle, Kiss has got a New Year's stream thing. Have you heard about this?
Nope.
From Dubai.
Oh, wow.
New Year's Eve, it goes from $50 to $1,000, depending on what you want to see, I guess. I don't know what that means. But yeah, it's a pay-per-view thing. New Year's
Eve. So they
Eve,
have a GoPro on Gene Simmons' bass, and if you want to see that footage, it's like $1,000.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, Gene.
Oh, boy. Well, awesome, dudes.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon, man.
Check out Shane on all the socials, YouTube, Toque every Tuesday. It's a ton of fun. Support this cat. He's out there absolutely fucking killing it. We love what you're doing, man, and you got to come back.
I will. Let's do it soon.
Okay, dude.
Thanks, guys, for having me. It's been a blast.
See you, buddy.
Peace out.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.